Sound, rumbling. The room rattled around her. A whistle. She opened her eyes. Darkness. She closed her eyes and opened them. Nothing. She could feel the fabric of a veil across her eyes. She lay on a hard surface. I can't move. Her arms were laid out to either side and bound at the wrist. Her legs straight out, also bound. She struggled for a moment, pulling and twisting. It was no good. The room shook, jarring her bones. She felt weak, sore all over. Her lungs rasped for air, aching, stinging, as if she were drowning, as if she were sinking into dark waters, the pressure eclipsing all sense of direction. Down, down into the depths, alone, claustrophobic, the walls of her dark liquid prison pressing in, tightening across her chest, her fingernails clawing at the bottom, sticking in the mud. Let me out! She fought the restraints, panic welling up inside her breast, sluicing through the sieve of her ribs and poisoning the blood swirling through the chambers of her heart. She strained, then lay back, gasping for air around the gag. Think, she told herself. She needed to think. Where am I? How did I get here? Her memory yawned open like a deep chasm, deep and dark, and for a moment she couldn't remember, as if all her past had leached out of her into the stone. Then, electricity ripped across the darkness. A man loomed over her, a surgical mask obscuring his features, a scalpel in his hand, the blade descending towards her eye, the tip thin and cold and sharp as ice. She trembled. He cut me. She felt again the pain, the fluid of her eye gushing out. He killed me. She blinked, hoping beyond hope to see something, a pulse of light, anything, but all was dark. Am I dead? Her lungs pulled air, her heart shuddered in her chest. But then no, she couldn't be dead. She still had a heartbeat. She still felt the cold metal she lay against. Her fingers were going numb from the bindings. I'm alive. Then the question was how? How was she alive? She remembered the knife, the pain in her eye as it entered. And then, what had he said? 13 times. She squeezed her eyes shut, focusing, trying to remember. But she could only catch the sheen of it, the edge of the memory. Pain, excruciating pain. Terror, blood, everywhere her blood. Drifting away, then the pull back, the shock jumping through her heart, life flooding her nerves, the white mask staring down at her. Trial 14. She screamed into the gag and thrashed and kicked. She was nearing the bottom now, the mud accepting her like a lover, wrapping her in its embrace. Focus, she told herself. Breathe. She relaxed, though her muscles continued buzzing as if hundreds of centipedes crawled around inside. She couldn't come apart. Not now. How did you get there? Think. A boy's face swept into her mind. He had black hair. She knew him. She was certain of it, but his name escaped her. He hammered his fist into a window. He was trying to break it. Why? They were coming. A darkness bubbled through the cracks around the trapdoor, gliding up the walls, rippling, shifting. Noctura. She collapsed to the floor, a sodden weight pressing in on her lungs, the room darkening. And as she did, the boy turned to her, his face a microcosm of human suffering, anguish, pain, determination, there all in his hard eyes. A light grew in the brown depths. He raised his hand, light beating like dew in the center of his palm, brighter, brighter. Then the heat swept over her, and the roar, and every nerve was screaming, and her skin was crackling. Then the darkness, then the fall, then the mud at the bottom, the pull, the shock, the light. A young man in a bloody white apron stared down at her, terror set in his eyes, his mouth agape. Before she could move, before she could collect herself, the mask came. A needle dove into her arm. Sleep. And she had, and she'd woken in the white room with the white tile. Death, life, and now here she was. Continue your work in Sotsu, the other voice had said. That could mean only one thing. The whistle sounded. The wheels screeched against the track. The engine chugged. Yes, she was on a train. But how long had she been unconscious? How far had they gone? And before that? She reached back in her memory. The pieces were scattered, no two seeming to fit together. Before that, where was I? Where did I come from? What was I doing? And the question dropped like a weight in her gut. Who am I?